As you know, I love rent to rent, all right? But there's 3 reasons I see it go wrong, all right? And on this video, I'm gonna share them with you so that you can look out for them and you don't make the same mistakes I have in the past. I'm Simon, rent-to-rent specialist and mentor. Over the past 5 years, I've built a 7-figure revenue rent-to-rent business, and now I help people like you do the same. If that sounds good, hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, make sure you hit the notification bell so that every time we release new content, you get it, okay? Now, before we get into it, the reason I started this channel was because I was tired of seeing people that were spending loads of money on courses, all right? And they weren't getting the results, they weren't getting the support, they weren't getting the full picture. Then they go out to the big wide world, they think they can do rent to rent or whatever, and they fall flat on their face. So I was like, do you know what? If I can avoid that happening, and if I can give loads of free content out to help you, then I will. So that's what this channel is all about. If that sounds good, hit the subscribe button. Honestly, you will not regret it. There's over 200 videos. Plus, I've got over 100 of free podcasts that you can tap into as well on simonsmithonline.com. So check that out. Now, there's 3 main reasons I see rent to rent go wrong. The first thing that can go wrong is the landlord. If you choose the wrong landlord, okay, or maybe the wrong landlord chooses you, because sometimes it can go either way. And then down the line, you realize this, it can be really problematic because they own the property, right? So they've got to be happy. The whole point of rent to rent is that you are solving the landlord's problem and that it's a win-win. So if they want to be overly involved, if they live next door and they're constantly checking and always watching what your tenants and that are doing and, you know, telling you all the lawn's not done correctly or whatever, that's not going to work. If a landlord, you know, maybe is unresponsive and won't do the necessary works when they come, if the boiler goes and the landlord's dragging their heels, that's not going to work. That's when rent to rent goes wrong because you've chose the wrong landlord. So I know that when you're starting, you're going to be thinking, oh, I just want to get deals. Oh, which landlord would accept me? I've just started. But I'd ask you to just slightly change your psychology and realize that you are adding massive value to the landlord. The landlord's supposed to be offering massive value in terms of their property. So it's got to be a win-win. It's got to be mutual. It's got to be the right fit. And if it's not, I would walk away because every single time I get into a deal that I wasn't sure about the landlord, it goes wrong. Top tip. The right landlord today may not be the right landlord in 2 years because people change, people evolve. Just prepare yourself to understand that in 2 or 3 years or 5 years or 1 year, a landlord that was suitable at the time may have changed the goalposts. And if they give you stick, don't take it personally. I've had this loads and it really upsets me because I feel like I've done such a good job for you. I've guaranteed your rent for 2 years or whatever it's been. And then for whatever reason, we've fallen out of favor, and it's rare that it happens. But as always, I'm going to tell you how it is. So first thing to go wrong is the landlord. So protect your landlord, choose carefully, and remember not to get too precious because things will change. The second thing is the property, all right? It is a property business. So it goes without saying that if you've got the wrong property, for whatever reason, you're gonna have a big issue. So you could have the perfect landlord, but if the property's too tired, or if the property costs too much, or if the property's in the wrong location, or you know maybe the property has a constant damp or boiler issue, you're gonna have a major problem. That's the way it goes. So once again, your psychology should be to take your time, to look at the properties, to do a correct viewing and analyze the property. And if you're not sure what to look for, you really need to get educated and understand properties. You're in a property business now. So if the property is, you know, it's got damp or it's got a bad boiler or it's got a garden that's really hard work or whatever that is, you need to make sure that you're aware of that and you pull out if it's not the right deal for you before you sign. And when I started, I knew nothing about property. I could barely put a shelf up. I couldn't put an IKEA unit up. Well, I could, but it would take me 10 times longer than it should. So you need to get educated in that. I don't see enough people doing content on this. What to look for when you're doing the viewings, like What are the red flags? What should the boiler be? What certificates should you see? Like, we're all just trying to be sexy rent-to-renters and get cash flow. But what about the hard property stuff? I don't see enough of this on the courses. Let me know what you think. If you agree and you feel like you're not prepared to know about property because you're brand new, comment below property, all right? Just so I know that, because I could do more content on that if that would be helpful. So, second thing is property. Choose the right property. And last but not least, the third thing is your tenants or guests, or it could be the lack of. So this is a three-way relationship. Landlord, rent-to-renter, tenant and guest. None of them work without the other, all right? So it's so important that you look after your tenants, you look after your guests, but also that you can attract them. Because if for whatever reason you pick a property in the wrong area and you can't attract the guests or tenants, the whole thing breaks down. So we need to make sure, yep, we've got the landlord, yep, we've got the tenant stroke guest demand, and of course, we are that missing piece that ties it all together. Now, top tip, if you feel unsure about the demand in an area or which property you need to go for, I've got so much content on this on the channel, on my podcast. Go check it out, all right? That is a key mistake that I see people doing. Because let's face it, if you get the right landlord, you get the right property, but for some reason it's not attracting the guests or the tenants, you can't guarantee the rent, you're getting voids, you've got a big, big problem, all right? But don't worry, because if you do this correctly, you've got the right agreements in place, there'll always be an exit. But we don't want to exit. We want to invest our time into properties where we're going to get the income and be able to keep it moving. So that's it for me. They're the three main problems that I see in rent to rent, okay? Number one, the landlord. Number two, the property. Number three, the tenant or guest. Now remember, there are technical things that can go right and wrong and legal things that can go right and wrong. Sure, all right? But I'm just talking about the main principal things, and some of the other legal stuff. I've got the agreement pack. Check out rent2rentagreements.com, and I've got loads of content on that too. I hope you found this useful. If you have, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.